What's going on, guys? Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. It has been quite the eventful month with all of the Scandival drama. Every day it's a new disaster, and now we're getting ready to go into the reunion next week. There's a new podcast episode that's about to drop where we'll get into all of the details of the latest with the Scandival drama and the reunion and the Raquel and the Sheena and the restraining order and the zooming in and all of it. Because Rachel, thanks a lot, Rachel. You just keep fucking it up for us, don't ya? Well, it's okay, because we're going to take a break from Scandival and we're going to dive into New Jersey, because we got the ladies of Real Housewives of New Jersey keeping things just as spicy. So I have the Brav Bros, Steele and Shooter, that are going to be here in just a second, and we're going to recap this week's episode of Real Housewives of New Jersey. I hope you're ready for it. Oh, hi, it's me, Zack Peter, pop culture junkie, reality TV insider, published author, and host of the No Filter with Zack Peter podcast. Here I'll bring you all the latest news on the Real Housewives, deep dives into celebrity legal scandals, and unfiltered convos with your favorite stars. I've got you covered, and yes, I always keep receipts. So be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for all the latest tea. Now, let's dive in. Dive in we shall. Please welcome from the Brav Bros, Steele and Shooter.
What's up, guys?
How you guys doing?
Good. This is becoming like a routine. It's nice. I could check in every week.
We have a little check-in every week. Guys, just a reminder, we do still have tickets on sale for our No Filter Night Out with the Brav Bros in Philly, April 27th at City Winery. You can go to nofilterlive.com to get your tickets. Go to nofilterlive.com right now to come see me, Steele, Shooter, and some very special guests at City Winery in Philly, April 27th. We hope to see you there. If you have bought your tickets already, let us know in the live chat so that we can give you a shout out. Let's see who's in the live chat today. We have Aaron, we have Jackie, we have Artist, we have Mama Bear, we have Love and Live, like Teresa. We just love, love, love. We have Michelle in the live chat, Coffee Buzz. Hey guys. All right. So Steele, Shooter, what was Shooter, we'll start with you. What was your initial takeaway from this week's episode of Jersey? Do you have a team that you're on?
I thought it was good. Overall, it was enjoyable. I like to see that the newbies are mixing it up a little bit. We get to see kind of where they're going to be, and we've been talking about this for a while. I like that Fuda was kind of inserting herself and spilling some tea that she got from Jen over to the other side, talking about Teresa with Melissa. And then, towards the end, it kind of just an indication that it looks like Danielle's going to be a force to be reckoned with. She was standing tall right in front of Marge. Love to see that. I'm excited. I mean, it looks really good.
Steele, how you feeling?
I feel good. I'm enjoying the season. I think that there's enough going on that we're not getting too stuck on the Teresa Joe stuff, because that is a risk that we run every season because it's the mainstay, so to speak. But I like that we're seeing Danielle kind of blossom as we assumed she would. Like Shooter said, seeing her stand up to Marge and kind of go to her confessional, like questioning how Marge treats her friends and all that was refreshing. I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic, as we like to say here at the Brav Bros. We're always cautiously optimistic.
Always cautiously optimistic. So are you leaning more towards Team Jen Aydin or more toward Team Marge?
I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards Jen Aydin. I can't stand Marge and you can even see Jen Fessler like sitting down with it. Like I'm not worried about Jen. I'm just worried about you, what I can control. And I don't like to see you pop off like that. Like, if you're a friend of Marge, I feel like at this point, you got to know that's who she is and what she's going to do. And to see her just kind of conniving behind the scenes, always digging up dirt on other people from the past to bring into the present. You hate to see that. It's a terrible characteristic. So I'm always going to be opposition of Marge. Jen's kind of hard to root for. I'm not going to lie. But I feel like she's got you can't fuck with me attitude this year. And I like to see it. She doesn't really care. She gets to talk to her husband about it. She doesn't care what's going to come up. She just has defense for pretty much everything. And I'm here for it.
Steele, what about you? Are you Team Jen?
Yeah, by default. Like, I'm kind of on Shooter's team here. Like, we're both anti-Marge a lot of the time. So it's easier to root for Jen. It's hard to root for Jen when she talks because of the things she says. But I think that my biggest issue with the whole thing, and what Marge likes to do, is go with like the trauma defense. Like, Jen's going through so much, and Jen is unhinged, and Jen needs therapy, and Jen this. Like, she keeps going after her psyche, and we talk about it all the time. I hate when people do that.
Yeah.
I think it's so rude to just assume that somebody is at a lesser mental state than you, that you can speak on it like that. And for Marge to throw stones there when she's unhinged at the table, yelling at Jen, not letting her get a word in, it's like, don't throw stones in a glass house. Like, you need to step back, stop throwing therapy out there, stop trying to throw Jen under the bus. Because is she going through stuff? Yeah. I mean, we saw it with the therapy scene with Bill, which was atrocious on his part, but like, she's got a lot of shit going on. So we need to be a little bit more understanding of her situation, I think. But to be on Marge's team with this, I think is too hard, at least for us.
I'm always team the show, right? I'm always like, I don't necessarily pick a side as long as it's entertaining for us to watch on these housewife shows. That's why I was never like team Erica or team Sutton, even though I got pigeonholed as team Erica. I never actually picked a side. I just like to look at both sides of the coin. And so that's where I stand with Jersey as well. I don't like Margaret taking such low blows at Jen, because it does feel like Jen is going through a hard time. I don't love Marge calling Jen a drug addict when all we know she's doing is smoking pot. Drug addict makes it look like she's shooting up in the back alley, which Jen isn't. She's not a pill popper. She's not injecting anything into herself. What is she? She has a vape pen. Like, wow, that's hardly scandalous. You know, she has a bong. Like, I mean, shit, if I was married to fucking Bill Aydin, I would probably have a bong too. I don't smoke, but like, I would probably, you know, need to have to deal with all those kids and him not like being an emotional support system. Yeah, I would need something to relax me too. I'm under a lot of stress. Tom's house was broken into and he confronted the burglar and then had to go have eye surgery. And yeah, I'm under a lot of stress, you guys. So if I were Jen Aydin, I would need a puff here and there. So I don't love all of Marge's behavior, but I have to disagree in the sense that I don't think Margaret intentionally goes digging up dirt on people to use towards them. I think Margaret is a gossip, and I think Margaret likes to have the scoop on people. But she only releases it when you back her into a corner. You come at Marge and she has ammunition against you. She's like a doomsday prepper. She has a whole basement full of ammunition, but she's not just going to go out and start shooting people. She's going to make sure she only goes down there if you come into her house and start trying to steal her can of beans in the apocalypse. So I feel like when it comes to Marge, that Teresa and Jennifer are trying to malign her, you know, they're trying to malign her character a little bit and make it seem like she's more than just a gossip, when I think she's more of just like, you know, she likes to have the scoop on everybody just because she likes to have the tea, and she likes to spill it when it's time to spill the tea, you know? But I don't think she's actively trying to drop bombs on people. Whereas this season, to me, feels like Teresa and Jen are very much trying to craft this narrative against Margaret and Melissa. And that's why I think you see them go to Danielle and to Jen Fessler and to Rachel Fuda. And they're trying to like plant seeds in their head that you can't trust Margaret because she's going to drop a bomb on you, when it seems like that's exactly what Teresa and Jennifer are trying to do with Melissa and this cheating rumor that we know is about to come out. Scooter, you sound skeptical.
No, yeah, I definitely sound skeptical. Scooter, yeah. I absolutely think that Marge goes. I think you're right. I think that she only uses the ammunition when she needs to. But how she gets that ammunition, I absolutely can see her going and digging and trying to drum it up. Now, yeah, if she's not planning on using it maliciously and she's only using it in self-defense, does that make the action of going and digging any better? No, I really don't think so. Now, what do you think about, because I had an issue with last night when they're talking about Marge and they're saying, you know, she's a much better friend than an enemy. I don't think that's an insult. I feel like that's almost like a sign of respect. Like, you don't want to go head to head with her because she will absolutely blow you apart.
Yeah,
I think that that's a sign of respect. I don't understand why she's offended by that. If anything, you should be like, yeah, absolutely. Like, you don't want to go toe to toe with me.
well, especially because her tagline, I'm a loyal friend, but I'm a more lethal enemy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what are we doing here? Like, that you just got vindication for your catchphrase. Like, back off. That's like my problem with her, is that she tries to find a problem with everything. Like, she can't just sit back. And that is not an insult. Shooter just said
No.
it perfectly. It's not an insult by any means, but anything that Jen says, she is now like weaponized against her. She's like, if she hears it, she's like, oh, I'm going to clap back, even if it's not a clap backable offense, if you will. Like, she just needs to chill the fuck out, and she doesn't. Like, that's my issue with Marge. It's like, once she flips that switch, it's just irrational. And I don't like when conversations don't go anywhere. Like, when people are just yelling at each other, it doesn't work for me. And I'm not saying Jen's much better, because she will kind of add gas to the fire after the fact. She loves to chime in with, like, she has to get the last word in, even if it doesn't make any sense. That's annoying too. But I think that Marge is just looking for reasons. She's looking for reasons. And then my biggest problem is, after the argument, she'll go to another group of ladies and talk about it and just be like, she was like out of line and she was unhinged and she was going off the rails. And all I was trying to say to her was this, like, then she paints this picture that she was like calmly presenting something to the conversation. And in fact, she was screaming just as bad as Jen, but then tries to paint Jen like she's the problem.
Yeah, I think they're two sides of the same coin. I think they're both alike. I think somebody said that Jennifer is just a younger version of Marge. And I actually kind of agree with that. I think Jennifer is like Marge in training. Like, Jennifer is already digging up dirt on Melissa. They're already starting to plant the seeds about how you can't trust Margaret, so that when this information finally does get revealed and we link it back to Margaret, it's like, oh, see, Margaret does have beef on, or have tea on everybody. And not only that, but they're also like, Jennifer and Teresa are very clear. Like, the reason other people at the table don't stand up to Margaret is because they're afraid of the secrets that Margaret's keeping in her vault. So I feel like they're doing a lot of they're laying down the tracks to take us on this train that's ultimately going to derail us, to make Margaret look bad and make it look like she had this info on Melissa. I mean, we have to see how it plays out, right? All we've heard are the rumors and the speculation online. We don't know what the actual rumor is or how it actually comes up. We hear that I think Danielle's the one that actually brings it up on the show, but it just, to me, watching it now, it kind of feels like they're doing exactly what they were accusing Margaret of doing in this moment, of, like, building that, because we know they found this information out prior to last season's reunion and they weren't able to bring it out. So I feel like now they're dropping little nuggets to help us get to that point. And Teresa's done this in the past, right? She used to do it to Melissa all the time. Teresa's great at it, and it's what makes her such a great character on Real Housewives of New Jersey, is that she knows how to play the game so masterfully. As dingy as she likes to be, I think she's not self-aware, but she is calculated.
I think that's well put.
So we'll see. But I think I do love Jennifer, though. Again, I feel like I'm riding hard for Marge, but I really do love Jen because she's so polarizing and entertaining to watch. It is really hard, though, seeing her go through this marriage issue that she has. The therapy session was so uncomfortable for me because you could just tell she had so much to let out, and he was like not even interested in being there.
No, but I feel like that's real too. And if it wasn't for Jen, what would we be talking about this season so far? It would just be between Joe and Teresa and Louis and Melissa and everything. Aside from that, there's really not a whole lot here. And it's nice to see. And we always talk about seeing the real moments for these people, because it really humanizes these characters that we see week to week. And seeing her just struggling with her marriage and Bill just giving absolutely nothing is, I mean, it's tough to watch, yes, but it actually humanizes Jen and shows how much she's really going through. So it's hard to not, I mean, yes, like Steele said, she puts her foot in her mouth all the time. She says ridiculous things, but it does give you a point to be like, all right, I kind of feel bad for Jen right now, so I understand what she's going through. And then you go to March and you're like, I don't understand what you're going through. Like, why aren't you just apologizing for what you did last season and blowing up the whole thing and letting Jen just go through her marital dispute on her own? It's kind of hard to watch, and you kind of have to support Jen in that moment.
Yeah, because I mean, I want to root for Jen because it's like her marriage, you can tell she wants to fight for her marriage, but you can tell more than she wants to fight for her marriage. She wants Bill to fight for their marriage, and it just doesn't feel like he is willing to, like, put all his eggs in this basket. And I think, and I'm curious to know what your guys' perspective is, being that you're both in, committed relationships. Steele, I know that you're married, but, like, I feel like when it comes to Bill, he's so used to just kind of having a submissive woman, and he's so used to kind of her just being around the house and taking care of the kids and not having to be an emotional support for her, where now it's like he's like, why do I have to care about your feelings when I didn't care about them for the last, decade of our marriage?
I think Bill wants the like classic 1950s housewife. Bill wants the woman to take care of the kids, cook dinner, take care of the household. He goes to work, comes home, and lives his own life, and she takes care of the home life. He doesn't want to be hands-on. And the problem with what's happening now, with Jen wanting to speak up, Jen wanting to address the cheating rumor, or not rumor, the cheating, and for Jen wanting to have this voice now, his issue is now his sanctuary, which is his own life, right? The pool house, his job, Ferraris, everything outside of the family is now being challenged. Like he's going to lose that because when she said the pool house comment, I was floored. I was like, dude, you're at work all day and you get home and you bounce to the pool house and you come into the main house after dinner. Like, what an asshole. So, like Shooter said, that really humanized it for me because I'm quick to throw anybody under the bus, but I like these moments because it brings us back down to earth. And it's like, wow, your husband sucks. Like, this guy's an idiot. And to watch him not give even 10% effort during that therapy session was really difficult to watch, and like see her just grasping at straws, trying to say things, and beforehand just be like, if you have anything you want to address, like I want you to do that too. Like she's trying so damn hard and getting nothing back. So it makes a lot of sense when you see her behavior elsewhere because she's just now grasping at straws. I think she's trying to find connections with the other women, but is struggling to do so because she can only talk smack and she's trying to garner support via shit talking, which isn't going so well. But when you look behind the curtain and see what she's dealing with at home, it's like, wow, okay, this all is starting to kind of make a lot more sense why she is acting the way that she's acting. And it's all because of Bill. Bill's a dick.
Yeah. I don't see their marriage lasting.
I don't either, but not from lack of effort on her part. It's going to be like he's 100% checked out. He doesn't want to be married. He doesn't want to be in a loving, involved relationship.
He's good. He's totally fine. He's like, I'm on television now. I got money. People know I got money. He will have no problem finding himself, a young Lenny Hochstein girlfriend. He'll be good.
He's the next Lenny, honestly.
He is. Yeah, he's definitely and the right profession for that, right?
I mean, yeah, right up in there. Shout out to Jackie Burleson, trifecta of good looking guys. Great commentary. Thank you for the super sticker, Jackie. Love and appreciate you. Okay, should we move on over to Teresa and Melissa and Joey and Louie?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Give the people what they want.
So much to break down there. But first, guys, don't forget to get your tickets to No Filter Night Out with me and the Brav Bros. April 27th at City Winery. Go to nofilterlive.com if you're enjoying our commentary tonight. Hit the like button, but head on over to nofilterlive.com right now to get your tickets. They're selling fast. So head to nofilterlive.com. April 27th, we're going to be at City Winery in Philly for a live podcast taping with some very special guests. So be sure to join us. Go to nofilterlive.com right now. Okay, now. So watching this week's episode and seeing the moment where Rachel Fuda is talking to Melissa and she's telling her about how Jennifer was warning her about Margaret, or how Jennifer and Teresa were warning her about Margaret at Danielle's daughter's birthday party and how you can't trust her because, she's a good friend but a worse enemy, or whatever they were saying to her. And then Melissa's like, I called it. I knew that the second Teresa went over to Margaret, it was total BS and that she wasn't interested in making up with Margaret. She just knew, and it was probably coming from Louis with his influence, that they needed to make nice with Margaret so that Margaret would stop spilling all of Louis' secrets. And she called Louis manipulative. What are your thoughts?
I don't really think that he's... Here's the hard thing is, like, if you're manipulative, it's one thing to say you're manipulative with an agenda, but I can't figure out what his agenda is except for peace. So if you're manipulative for just having everything be copacetic and peaceful within your own family and have everybody love each other, I don't think that's like a negative manipulation. I feel like what he's doing is just trying to change Teresa for the better and trying to repair relationships. Like, is he manipulating things around them? Maybe. But if it's for the better, do we really care? Like, we can see that Joe is the one who squirms and runs away in the softball locker room and he can't face anything. And then he comes over and he's enjoying the calendar. And Teresa says, this is the Joey that I love. And you see Louis give him a big hug. and all the kids are playing and everything. Like, I feel like that's what Louis wants. He just wants a good, happy family and everybody to be copacetic in many different ways. So I don't think that he doesn't have this huge, like, malicious agenda. So I don't really have an issue with him. If you want to call him manipulative, that has a negative connotation. So you got to be careful with throwing that around. I feel like Melissa's just trying to strike him down because she doesn't know what to do.
I think it's control. I think he likes to have control over the narrative and over the situation. And I think Teresa is used to being controlled based off of her last relationship and her marriage to Gia Giudice, who was very controlling, but not very loving. And now we see somebody who's controlling, but also loving. And people like to use the term love bombing. I don't fuck with all these stupid terms because nobody knows what they mean. You know, oh, I'm codependent and I'm love bombing and all this bullshit. I don't fucking fuck with that. But sorry for your kid shooter. But or steal.
Steals.
I got my headphones in. My daughter can't. I've already said the F word 3 times, so I've failed.
But I think only because I was buying into it. And I was like, he's a really good guy and he's a really nice guy and blah, 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 blah. And then Jacqueline and Teresa made up, right? And I was like, oh, this is nice. They seem to be making nice and Teresa seems to be wanting to be better. And I wanted to believe that that was true and genuine. And even talking to Jacqueline, Jacqueline's like, yeah, it felt very true. It felt very genuine, whatever, whatever. So I shared the photo of them, you know, reconnecting, talked about it on the podcast. And then all of a sudden I get a DM from Louis randomly, unprovoked, totally random, slides into my DMs and is like, Jacqueline and Teresa's reunion was very genuine. I just want you to know it was a very real reunion. They're both very genuinely trying to make up with each other, which made me think maybe he was the one that also influenced this reunion with Jacqueline. And then furthermore, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, Jacqueline seems to think that it was, you know, it was a very genuine reconnection. And I think it's great that they're able to put leave their stuff in the past and move forward together, right? I left it there. And then he responds again. And he's like, you know, because when I met Teresa, I have a son with special needs. And Teresa was so sweet to my son with special needs. And he's telling me all of this stuff about his son and how he's a great dad and how he, you know, loves and adores his son. And at first I thought maybe he, you know, did a little research on me and knows that I have a brother with autism. And I used to do a lot of work for the autism community, you know, prior to pivoting into being, you know, a full-time pop culture shit talker. I actually, you know, have a background in philanthropy and used to run an autism foundation back in the day. But I was like, oh, maybe that was his point of connection. But he never referenced that. And he never like helped me understand why he was revealing this information to me. And so it started to feel like he was then starting to craft this narrative that he's such a good guy and he wants me to know that he has a son with special needs to humanize him and to show what a great dad he is. So to me, that felt very manipulative because it's like, why are you slide into a podcaster's DMs and talk about how great Teresa is and how great she is with you and how great you are as a father and how genuine this reconnection with Jacqueline actually is, unprovoked. I did not provoke him. I was not trying to bait him for information. I ended the conversation when I was like, you know, it's good that they were able to leave it in the past. So to me, it does feel like there is some manipulation on Louis's part. And I think it's possibly to control. I think he may have some control issues. And maybe that's why he had some issues in his previous relationships. But I am skeptical. And I didn't become skeptical until that DM.
Here's my thing. All right. With all of the Louis stuff, I see what you're saying. All right. I can see how that could be read as manipulative. He's trying to paint this narrative, whatever. At what point do we allow people to show us that they're changing? That's my big problem is like, okay, he has a past. We all do. My past sucks. We can go through my past. It was a nightmare, but here I am. And I like to think I'm a pretty good dude these days. So has he had issues? Sure. Is there a chance that he's manipulating? Always. I mean, that's with anybody. We have to watch it play out. But I feel like it's a dangerous game to play when we're crucifying people for being manipulative, for being bad people, for not changing when we're watching them try to, or at least that's what they're showing us, right? Like if we're going to watch this stuff, I want to see it play out. If I have to put my foot in my mouth at the end of this and be like, I was wrong, I will wholeheartedly say so. I don't have any problem admitting when I'm wrong, but I also have a big problem with nailing people to the cross before we know what's going on. Like they seem to be making an effort. Watching Teresa in therapy, is it for the show? Could be, but it sounds like she's trying to make an adjustment. with Louis. People get on him because he wrote that note, like, hey, say this, or at the reunion, hey, you're making yourself look bad right now. Like, you shouldn't talk like that, whatever. Is that not the role of your spouse or significant other to put you in check or to tell you certain things to be a better person? Like, you want to grow. He's helping Teresa grow for all intents and purposes, at least from what we've seen. Now, is it something to keep an eye on, to be a little wary of? Okay, that I can deal with. I can understand people wanting to see it and not buying in, being skeptical. Great. But while you're skeptical, don't take it upon yourselves to go in the comments and say, Louis is a manipulative piece of shit. He's trying to take blah, blah, blah. Like, people get so vindictive with this shit. And it's like, can we just watch? Because from every scene that I've seen with the two of them, he's not being controlling and aggressive and overbearing. He's talking to his wife. Like, people forget, does Teresa have her own voice? Absolutely. As anybody should. She should be able to speak on her own. I agree. Is it the role of your spouse? Like, if I'm being an asshole, do I want my wife to come in and be like, dude, relax, or hey, stop, you look like shit right now? Absolutely. Every time. Always tell me if I'm being a dick, because I don't want to come off that way. So I feel like it's hard to play this game where they're trying to show us something different, and immediately we have preconceived notions because of how they acted last year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We're talking about 10 to 15 years ago, and we're going to compare that person, who they are today, to who they were then, because I know damn well I'm not the same person. So I think it's a dangerous game.
Yeah, I think we forget that it is a reality show and we have to consume this within the lens of entertainment, right? We're here to watch and be entertained. So when somebody, even when it comes to like the Raquel and Tom Sandoval stuff, and people are like crucifying Raquel and Tom and be like, they need to be fired. And why is Bravo going to allow them to stay on the show? I'm like, it's fucking Vanderpump Rules. Like, they fuck each other all the time. Like, are we really that, like, now all of a sudden we have a moral compass? And like, I get why Lala and James are pissed off with them, because like they were crucified for their own bad behavior. So they're like, okay, now it's time for somebody like Sandoval and Raquel, who pretended to be these good, moral, upstanding people, or, you know, pretended to be so innocent, are not actually as innocent. Whereas Lala and James have always shown us who they are and were crucified for that. You know, now they feel like there was this double betrayal. So I get that. And I think people need to remember, because that was like this one Barbara. It's always a fucking Barbara, right? And this Barbara was like, oh my God, they need to fire Raquel because this is so bad. And Bravo has no moral compass. And I'm like, Bravo never meant to have a moral compass. They were never supposed to have a moral compass. It's trash television, and we need to watch it with that sense. And I think we need to remember that when watching Jersey as well. Now, to your point, though, Steele, when it comes to Louis, I was with you, and I was like, we need to give him grace because he hasn't done anything to make me question, you know, whether or not he's a good or bad guy, until the DM came to my door. And that's when I was like, okay, now I'm starting to look at things, because this isn't me judging him based off of his past. This is me judging him based off of him going out of his way to try and sell me on something. And I think you shouldn't have to sell yourself and your character on someone if you're not trying to hide something. So that's when my red flag alert started to go up for the first time, because I was trying to really give him some grace. But you're right. We do need to give him grace. We do need to wait for him to fall on the sword, because if he really is this person that everybody thinks that he is, he's going to show his true colors at some point. It's going to come to light, or it's not, and he really has changed.
Yeah, I think controlling the narrative and being manipulative are two different things, and we should be able to differentiate between those two.
I agree. My question, though, is regarding the motive. And that's what's ultimately going to determine, is this manipulative, or is this just trying to control the narrative? And that will ultimately determine the, what his motivation will ultimately determine which one of the two it is. And I don't think I figured out what his motivation is yet. Is it just that he's trying to clean up his bad, reputation that has been dragged out from the past? Or is it that he's trying to hide who he really is? And that has to be determined.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's keep a close watch.
Keep a close watch, and we'll see.
We have to.
We'll see what Louis brings to the table, and we'll be here every week to break it down.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that we got Dolores's charity softball event again. I'm kind of getting bored with, I'm glad that we get to see it, but I'm kind of bored with it. We do see some of the kids. We see Gia talking about how, she feels badly that she doesn't have a close relationship with her cousins, and she misses Antonia. And even Teresa seems to lay that groundwork as well, that there's some tension between Teresa's kids and Melissa's kids. And last week we see Melissa, having this conversation with Antonia, being like, that there's no issue between you and your cousins, right? And Antonia's like, yeah, mom, no, we're fine. So it's interesting that we're getting this juxtaposition in this narrative. The part that really stood out to me, though, was Gia saying, I'm not able to be there for them as much as I want to. And for me, I'm just like, you're a grown adult. You can text Antonia anytime you want to and maintain that relationship. Even if, let's say, Teresa and Melissa were influencing their kids and trying to keep them apart, Gia, if she's grown enough to go and talk back to her Uncle Joe and put him in his place, then she's grown enough to also be able to defy Melissa and Teresa and Joe's wishes and then go and be able to build a relationship with her cousins if she truly wanted to have a relationship with her cousins. Antonia's still a teenager. Gia seems to be a bit more mature. Gia's the oldest of them. So I kind of feel like Gia is also helping her mom craft this narrative against Joe and Melissa by trying to make it seem like Joe and Melissa are poisoning their kids against them. And I'm not a fan of it.
No, yeah, I can definitely see the seeds there. And we talked about it last week with who's right out of the cousins. And we kind of gestured towards Gia growing up on the show and kind of knowing how things work. And then Steele and I talked on our podcast about how Teresa really didn't have anybody to talk to. So she used to talk about her show drama, her friend drama, her family drama to her children. So that kind of poisons their mind, over the last couple of years. So we kind of have to see where this goes and how it pans out. But I think that Teresa taught her children how to play the game and how to play the Real Housewives of New Jersey game. And I think they're just way more seasoned than Melissa's kids, or Melissa's kids just don't really care and they don't want to be part of it. But you can see Melissa and Joe kind of floundering, looking for that angle to get back at Teresa, calling, Louis manipulative, like, oh, now I'm going to go after this. And it sounds like Teresa might have like a very well laid plan here where she's just sitting there. She looks nice. I mean, look, we're going to see how it goes. We're going to see if the therapy is actually working and if she's changed. But you always have to have that in the back of your mind. Like, when is she going to pop off? Because I feel like it's coming soon and it's going to happen. And I'm excited for it. I hope it happens. If it doesn't happen by the end of the year, then maybe we have a real discussion about her changing. But I think it's definitely on the horizon.
Maybe that's Louis' motivation, is to make Teresa look good so that we make Joe and Melissa look bad. And maybe that motivation behind it is to expose how bad Joe and Melissa are. That would make sense to me as to why we're trying to rehab Teresa's image. And especially if he was also complicit in this plan that Teresa and Jennifer have to expose Melissa's affair, then of course he's going to keep Teresa on a leash and make sure she behaves on the show and doesn't flip any tables, because then it's really going to make Melissa look bad and make it look like Teresa changed. And on top of that, we have all these scenes with them talking to their daughters about Joe and Melissa and about the fractured relationships they have with their cousins. And then we see Teresa making up with Jacqueline behind the scenes. So it's starting to feel, now that we're talking this through a little bit more, it's starting to feel like there's a bigger plan. And the plan is to make Joe and Melissa look bad. I would believe that.
That's always the plan, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always the plan.
Well, I think they know, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up, but I think they know there's money in the feud.
I mean, there's definitely money in the feud, but I mean, that's a pretty grand plan. Do I put it past them? No, I could see that being a thing. That's a lot of moving parts for Teresa, so I don't know if that's a pretty masterful plan. I do have to say, when I played pro baseball, I played in that stadium and coached in that stadium, so I always like to watch when they go back to Brooklyn. But back to the Gia thing, just because when that happened on the show, I was like, she just threw her hat in the ring. We talked about it, I think, on our review last week, that I think that Gia is going to step into a role as like a friend of, or eventually into like an actual housewife. But I think that this was your first indication of, ooh, she's playing the game now. Like, we've seen kind of inklings in the past where she obviously comments on certain things, comments on Joe, comments on the relationship with her cousins. But this was the first time where I was like, oh, she's trying to spin it right here. Like, she's trying to make it out like, I'm not there. I can't be there for I thought that sentence by itself was weird. I can't be there for them. Like, were they relying on you previously? Like, was that, were you a role in their life in which they were leaning on you for a lot of support, or were you just a cousin? I have a lot of cousins and I'm close with some of them. I'm really close with some of them. I wouldn't say that like I lean on them or I rely on them or they're not there for me. Like, I thought her wording was interesting, 100% intentional. She was trying to get that out there, trying to make people be like, oh, she just wants to be there for her family and they won't let her because they're evil parents. So that for me was the perfect indication of, oh, Gia's getting ready to take that step forward into the Bravo world and really become either a housewife or some kind of capacity.
Well, they also had Brooks had like was it for Bravo? Meredith Marks said Brooks Marks had like a talk show. It was really bad. Listen, I love Meredith and I like Brooks. I adore Meredith. She's always been very sweet and supportive of me. But like it was a very awkward, like Brooks doesn't have the personality to like host his own like talk show, but it was like an internet talk show.
Brooks
And
stinks.
I remember he was like interviewing other housewives' kids, and there was one where he like interviewed Gia, and it was just it's interesting. So it feels like Bravo's trying to make the kids, and then they did like an episode like for the holidays where they had all the kids. So Bravo's trying to make the kids a thing for sure, and I think Gia's aware of that. Now, people are saying that the Manzo in the live chat, people are referencing that the Manzo kids used to be a big part of the show and used to do confessionals, and Jacqueline's daughter Ashley also used to be part of the show and do confessionals. So it makes sense why Gia is now doing it. Yes and no. And here's my fight back on that is at the beginning, Jersey was one of the first housewife shows, right? It was what, the third or fourth? We had what, OC, and then we had New York and Atlanta and then Jersey. So at that point, and Housewives didn't really become what it became until the table flip. And that's what kind of changed Housewives. And then we had Tamara Judge come on OC, and then Atlanta started to pop off, and New York started to pop off and get a lot of press. So Housewives was building at that time that nobody knew the game. And I think the kids were so young at that point, they didn't understand reality TV. They didn't want to really be a part of reality TV. And so when you see them inserting themselves into the drama, like the Manzo boys defending their mom, or Lauren Manzo fighting with Teresa at the reunion, or Ashley pulling out Ashley pulling out Danielle's hair extensions in the earlier seasons of Jersey, it felt like they were genuinely just trying to defend their parents and didn't really understand the game. Whereas Gia grew up on reality television. Mm-hmm. Gia was very little. She knows the game. She knows how well her parents played the game in order to keep the paycheck. And I think she fully understands this world, and she knows how to keep the machine going.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
The family history in Teresa's therapy session was a helpful reminder of how rooted both Joe and Teresa's behaviors are. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, can we talk about Joe bouncing to the bathroom because he didn't want to cause a scene?
Yeah.
Like, what is that about? Like, this is where I get, anyone that's team Joe, Melissa, I'm not team anybody. Neither is Shooter. Like, we are trying to stay down the middle and just see how this all plays out. I think you're short-sighted if you think that you know the answer, like who's correct in this situation, because they both stink. But like, that's so not necessary, and especially to involve your child. Like, that's what I noticed immediately. Joey, come here. Don't pull him out of the room because you have an issue with your sister and you want to go to the bathroom and cut his sleeves off. Like, by the way, no one's going to cause a scene unless you escalate it that way. To paint this picture that your sister's so volatile that you can't even be in the same room as her because she's going to snap, is that he's gaslighting in a confessional. Like, let it play out. And then the funniest shit is, fast forward, they're all standing around laughing, looking at the calendar together. So what was this big scene that you were worried about, Joe? Because this is a charity event. It's your family. There is no drama. And the last time you guys talked, it was on the phone, and you said you were going to clear things up. You ditched the birthday party. You didn't go to that. And now you have a problem with being in the same room as Teresa? Like, it doesn't make sense.
I think that could have been post-production, because if you look later when all of the cousins are sitting around outside on the field talking and laughing, and you hear Joe say, "Hey, Joey, come over here." And it looks like he pulls Joey away from his cousins because he's having a good time. You can see Joe in the background. He's not even looking over there. So I think that Bravo could be spinning this narrative now, like as if we need anything else. You don't really need to do post-production shit, but it looked like the timing was a little suspicious of Joe going to the bathroom and telling Joey to come with him. I don't think Teresa was actually walking in the room at that point in time, because Joe came from a completely different direction when they were looking at the calendar. So the whole thing didn't really add up. And I hate watching it like this, but this is how I watch it now, because I feel like Bravo puts these seeds in there and they're like, "Ooh, they're going to love this." And then Joe's probably sitting at home watching like, "Shit, I did that an hour before Teresa got there." Like, that's not at all what happened. So I'm always very skeptical of the Bravo edit. It just, like I said, they don't need to create any more narrative than what's already there. Like, we already see enough. We don't need any more.
Yeah, and as an audience, we're savvy to this. We've been watching it for long enough. We know the tricks. We know the editing gimmicks. I do love though when people say that Joe Gorga is like an unofficial housewife because he acts like such a housewife. He gets into the drama. He gets messy in the confessionals. He does the theatrics when we're filming a group scene. You know, he is very much a female version of Teresa. I actually think he's more emotional than Teresa, and I actually think he's a lot more sensitive than she is, and that's probably what makes him a better housewife. Is he's so in tune with his emotions and so reactionary on camera that that's what causes all of these big scenes. Ronnie thinks that Joe Gorga is an icon.
Ronnie loves Joe and Melissa.
Yeah, I've seen him.
That's like his third comment about them being icons. Yeah.
He loves Joe and Melissa. Like, I'm not team Joe and Melissa or team Louis and Teresa. I'm team the show. And if what they're doing is working for the show, then I'm engaged and I'm a fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been enjoying Jersey this season. I think it's good.
I agree.
I think it's good because I originally thought it was going to be so much more Joe and Teresa, and we're getting a lot more other layers to the show. And I'm
Thanks
like,
to Jen.
Newbies. Yeah. Well,
I think Jen
one layer.
It's definitely one layer, but I mean they're mixing it up with the new people and trying to get us
the newbies
to turn our head. Yeah, the newbies. I think they're doing a great job. We talked about Jen Fessler last week. She's a good friend of. She doesn't need to get to that next level. But the fact, like her talking to Marge like an actual person, and Marge is just shutting her down. Marge is like, nah, I'm not having any of that. She's like, well, just don't take the bait. Just don't start yelling. And Marge is like, nah, she deserves it. It's like, all right, well, at least it seems like Jen Fessler is a real person that just got thrown into the world of Housewives. And it's really funny because it's like, oh, we all have those thoughts. Like, what if I starred on a Bravo TV show? And now we're seeing like Jen Fessler is just a normal person just getting thrown into the middle of it. She's like, why are these people the way that they are? I just don't understand it. It's like, have you watched any of them before?
No shot. She put it on in the background to support her friends. That's all. She's never watched like a full season of this show.
I loved Jen Fessler's scene with Margaret where she's kind of like holding her accountable because I'm like, this is what Margaret needs is somebody that's going to be real with her. And I don't think like Melissa will be real with Margaret in the sense that she'll put her in her place. The only two that are willing to put Margaret in their place are Teresa and Jennifer, but I don't think they do it in a way that has some sort of productive resolution at the end of it. They come at her and they throw things at her and they make accusations against her and then Margaret reciprocates that, and it just gets into these nasty yelling matches where you don't have a family and you don't have a good marriage, and it goes so low and it gets so dark. And so I think Jen Fessler is, I agree, a great friend of because she knows how to kind of keep the peace.
I do want to discuss. I want to hear both of y'all's opinion on it. What is Jackie doing? Why is she going after Danielle? She's gonna fucking lose. She has no chance against her.
She thinks that she's doing something iconic and trying to get back into the good graces of Bravo and maybe become a housewife again, but it's not going to work, and she sucks. It's just tough.
I mean, I like Jackie, but I'm not loving her on the show this season. It feels like she's trying too hard to like pick this bone with Danielle. And Danielle looks at her like Danielle is like a tiger and Jackie is like a chipmunk. And she just looks at her like, what are you doing? You're like a squirrel. You are not a competition for me. You are not anybody that can take me if we had to go, toe to toe. I think Jackie's just very frustrated. And she was also annoying with Jen Fessler. Remember when Jen was talking to, who was it, Dolores or Melissa? And then Jackie's like, I'm standing right here. And like one of the first two episodes, Jack, I'm standing.
It was the first episode.
Yeah, you didn't acknowledge me. And it's just like, what are you doing? Like, she's just trying too hard to like become a housewife, which then makes this narrative that she's pushing in the press about how she voluntarily stepped down from the show because of her eating disorder, which to me also doesn't make any sense because she's filming and she keeps saying, I'm filming like a regular housewife. So then how is it that you're actually stepping down from the show to prioritize your eating disorder treatment?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Because which is unfortunate because it then softens the impact of her journey, because I do think that that's a very, admirable thing to do, is to go through something like that in the public eye. And like, I'll never knock her for that.
Yeah.
And discussing it, like, I think that's incredible. And I think that I'm sure it resonates with a lot of women and men out there that see that and go, wow, maybe I can talk about it. So like, I'll never knock that part of it, but this does cheapen it a little bit, because if that was your reason for stepping away, and yet here you are thirsty as shit trying to get back on the show by throwing daggers left and right at the newbies, like, you don't think we see what you're doing? The scenes from next week where you call Danielle like a dollar store Snooki or whatever, like, what are you talking about? Like, they don't look anything alike. Two, you're clearly just throwing stones here for whatever reason. Like, just be quiet, sit in the background, wait for a moment, and then jump in. Wait for an actual moment. Don't try to produce your own, because you're now a friend of. Your job is not to bring the drama. Your job is to add the one-liner. Your job is to come in from out like left field and be like, boom, one-liner, and then leave. Jen Fessler's doing a great job of being the friend of, because she has the funny notes. Like, she comes in real quick. I don't think she leaves of her own accord. Somebody tells her to shut up and she bounces, but she listens. Like, Jackie doesn't read the room. She's trying to force these narratives. When she goes to that lunch last week with Melissa and she's sitting there trying to talk trash about Danielle, it sounds so forced. Like, she's just trying to pick a fight, but you don't. Like, just knock it off. Let the moments happen and then react to them, or you're going to keep losing us. Like, I'm out. I'm done. She sucks. I didn't like her last year. Now I'm like way out.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like she has her book coming out, which is about her eating disorder journey. She says that she stepped down from production to focus on her eating disorder journey. So give us that. Let's get into that more. If you're going to like give us the funny one-liners, give us those moments, but then like also find a way to incorporate, like if you have a limited amount of time on the show, then the biggest in a, you know, a bigger, and I understand she doesn't have control over editing and how, you know, what happens in post-production, but like then make sure that your focus is on selling people on your recovery, so that people then become more invested in your journey, so that they're more likely to want to then buy your book in a few months when it actually comes out. Whereas right now she's just turning people off, that like nobody's going to want to go and buy her book because nobody's going to be interested in her after this. But I do agree with Brian. Less Jackie, more shirtless Evan. The calendar was great. You guys need to do a Brav Bros calendar.
We actually said something about that last week.
We did talk about it.
Yeah.
Would you guys actually do it?
Yeah.
If the money's right, we'll probably do anything.
There you go. Guys, go and follow the Brav Bros. Listen to their podcast, Pimp Yourself Out. Where can everybody go and keep up with you guys?
Okay, here we go. At Brav_Bros on Instagram, at Brav_Bros on Twitter, at Brav Bros Podcast on YouTube. We got 1,500 subscribers now, which is up from like 200 2 weeks ago. So keep subscribing. Is that all of them? We suck at plugs.
So.
We always forget to do it on our episode until the end of the episode. And I'm like, oh shit, plugs. And then we're like, oh, remember to follow us. But in the beginning, so by the time everyone's done listening to us, because like we're like, oh, that's all we got, remember to follow us, and everyone like, you know, they turn off the podcast at that point. That's when we decide to put all of our stuff out. So
well,
we're getting better. We did plug the live show at the beginning, don't worry. But our handles we forget almost every time.
Well, you have to add your handle to your bot. Like I have my handle and Shooter.
Yeah, do you see? I couldn't figure it out. That's why I have parentheses Brav Bros. I'm a fucking idiot.
Well, it is linked below, so you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go and subscribe to the Brav Bros on YouTube. You guys are also on TikTok. You're on Instagram. You have a podcast out, so if you have a podcast app, whether it's Spotify or Apple, go and give the Brav Bros a subscribe. Leave them a nice 5-star Apple review. You can always give me a nice review because I love those on the No Filter with Zack Peter podcast. And get your tickets to see us in Philly, April 27th. We're going to be live at City Winery, April 27th. Get your tickets at nofilterlive.com. That's nofilterlive.com, guys. We're excited to meet you. We're excited to get to see everybody. Mary says to Google it next time, Steele.
Yeah, Google it, Steele.
I'm not Googling shit. I will not Google it now because you said that. Now I refuse to.
Aaron has subscribed to you guys. Guys, let us know if you've bought your tickets. Oh, Mary says bye to the Platinum Blondies. Well, Steele and Shooter are the bros, and I'm the Platinum Blondie. But thank you guys for joining us and tuning in to this week's recap. We're here every Wednesday at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and tune back in. so that you can keep up with all of the latest happenings in Joyzy with me, Steele, and Shooter of the Bra Bros. All right, guys, I love you. I appreciate you, and we'll talk next week. All right.
Love you
Bye.
too.
See you guys.